We'll start this meeting with a brief meditation, a guided meditation. So just sit comfortably and turn your attention inward. And rest, allowing your experience, whatever you perceive, whatever is appearing, just to let it be as it is. You don't need to do anything. Don't try to fix your experience or to solve any problems or improve how you feel. Just let it all be. Just for now. And simply enjoy being. Because being is joyful. Without concern about figuring anything out. Without being troubled by the past. Allowing things to be as they are, your body, whichever way you're feeling right now. Notice that it's possible for the mind to rest. Resting in presence. And how wonderful it is that you don't need to do anything in order to simply be. Like a newborn. A fresh moment. Brand new. That has not yet been conditioned by thought and by time, by beliefs. That in this moment, you don't need to be anyone or anything. You don't need to carry the past, concerns about the future. No need to define yourself in any way whatsoever. There is freedom in not knowing what you are. without any identification. Without any striving. Notice the gentle movement of breath. Prana. One of the many ways in which consciousness manifests. The warmth of the body. Maybe it's not too warm. Whichever way the body's appearing to you as sensation. It's hard to pin it down, this sensation. Which is the sense of being. Sometimes I speak about the background of being. We may wonder what that is. This intuition that we have about being beyond the form. Being undefined by thoughts and feelings. That deep intuition that we have, that we are not made out of matter. In this moment, in every moment. that we are the invisible presence that's aware thoughts may appear, images appear. Somehow we know deep down that we are not something which appears. That we are not defined by perceptions. We're not defined by that which we perceive. We have this deep yearning to be free and happy, irrespective of any situation, irrespective of any condition. And although the mind may direct us to various activities via which we will get there sometime in the future, deep down we know that we are that which we are looking for. We are right now this causeless peace and happiness. Which I sometimes refer to as the background of being. But these are just words, because in reality there is no background and foreground. Such distinctions are conceptual. In fact, reality is one. But we are so habituated to refer to ourselves as the body and the mind, as persons, as some limited beings. we have created a distinction created division between our formless and borderless reality and the body-mind. A conceptual separation. Once we believe that we are body-mind, a female or a male form, then we experience the sense of separation. Then we feel like we're like somebody who's in the ocean who does not know very well how to swim and struggling. To keep their head above water and to make their way to shore. But it's not possible for you to ever leave your true self. It is not possible for you to be that which you are not. It's not possible for you to be anything but the self, this aware presence. Although you may imagine yourself to be a person, a man or a woman, a mother or a father. You are this aware presence, this borderless aware presence. In all states, the waking state, the sleep state, the dreams, the deep sleep state. You are that. which is not a state. Turiya. The ground of being. The infinite background of awareness. Which appears as your mind, which appears as the world that you perceive. Which appears as the avatar that you feel yourself to be. Like in your night dreams, you perceive yourself as a character in your night dream. And you perceive a variety of events in your night dream. None of which is separate from you. You being the dreamer. And whatever happens to the characters in your dream is your own creation. It feels and seems so real, yes. But nothing whatsoever is happening to you. There are no borders to awareness. There are borders to bodies and to minds, but there are no borders to awareness. Notice in your own experience. Don't believe any words that you are hearing. Check it out in your own experience. That you is this awareness, is this presence. And that this presence, this awareness, has no borders, no location. Check it out. Because it is your understanding which matters. Okay, so if you have anything you'd like to discuss, any questions, make sure you unmute yourself. And there is also in the bottom of your screen a reaction icon. If you click on it, you have the option of also raising your hand if you would like. And you're welcome to turn on your video if you'd like. So any questions, anything that you would like to explore, discuss? Any questions? Hello, Richard.
Hi, Magdi. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good. I guess if no one is going to ask anything, I'll just ask about a personal experience that I had. I think others have had it. It was my first time. I went under general anesthesia for a minor procedure, and it was interesting. But maybe if you could, and I think you've done this before, but maybe I'll understand it a little better now. Could you speak to sort of the distinction between, excuse me, awareness as awareness, and then awareness is what the body mind perceives? Because certainly from what my perception was, one moment and then immediately the next moment, there was no interval of awareness when the body mind was sleeping in that deep sleep. Could you speak a little bit more about that distinction?
Yes, yes. So there is a distinction between awareness and mind. By awareness or consciousness, we're referring to the reality which right now perceives this perception. Let me put it another way. The reality which is irrespective of perception, but which in this moment perceives this perception. So we'd say that awareness is the reality which is and perceives. Now, Sometimes we use the word knowingness instead of awareness, or we use the term consciousness interchangeably. There are two aspects to awareness in terms of the perception aspect. In the phenomenal aspect, consciousness or awareness perceives the body, perceives the world, perceives thoughts. That's the phenomenal perception. But that does not limit the perceiving aspect of consciousness, because there is also the self-perception, the self-knowingness, that awareness also knows it is. Consciousness knows it is conscious, irrespective of perceiving a body, a world, or a mind, which we refer to as an apperception. I think that Jean Klein and maybe Krishnamurti and other people use that term, apperception. An apperception is a perception which is non-phenomenal, which we refer to sometimes as a the noumenal perception, the noumenal aspect of awareness. So there is the phenomenal, like perceiving your dreams, perceiving this perception, perceiving a toothache. And there is the apperception where consciousness knows it is, knows that it knows without needing phenomena, without needing objects. So then there is the term that I often, sometimes I use, it's the term sentience. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but sentience. Sentience is a phenomenal aspect. Certain phenomena, certain forms are sentient, and there are degrees of sentience. From the simplest perspective, one could say that humans, animals, and certain, we can stretch it to certain plants, are sentient. And some other forms, like a rock or a piece of metal, is not sentient. It doesn't breathe, it doesn't feel, it doesn't move, etc. I'm saying that's from a very simplistic way of looking at sentience. Because if you take a microscope and take a look at a rock, depending on the magnification power of the microscope, you will be amazed at how much activity or how much there is within a rock. And if you go even, if you increase the magnification, you will come to the subatomic level. You will come to the quantum level of form. And now you open a whole new world of activity and but let's keep it simplistic. The body, a human body, experiences throughout the day different levels of sentience. And the body, for example, is tired. The mental activities are diminish. the body is more sluggish. When you are hungry, when the body is hungry, the activities of the body, the sentient activities of the body are quite different from when the body is well fed. And when you fall on your head, or when you drink, a bottle of vodka, the degree of sentience of the body changes. So it's important to understand that although we use the term human beings are sentient or animals are sentient, there are degrees of sentience. In deep sleep, for example, or in the dream state, there is a difference in the level of sentience of the body than in the waking state. Now, in anesthesia, to just simplify it, the perceptual, the senses are scrambled. Just using this metaphor, that the senses are either dimmed down or scrambled, whichever way you want to so that there is no rhyme and reason at the mind level to decipher perception. Sometimes we say, well, in anesthesia, the senses are dimmed way down so that you don't perceive any thoughts, any sensations, any perceptions. What does that have to do with awareness or consciousness? Nothing. Because awareness is, it is not a function of the body. It is not a function of the mind. In other words, there is no such thing as more awareness or less awareness, although we use these terms in our language. Say more conscious, or feel more conscious or less conscious. That's just a way of speaking, but that's not the correct usage of the term awareness or consciousness in how we use these terms in our meetings. There is no more or less, there isn't a dial when it comes to consciousness. Because consciousness, the reality which perceives right now, the reality which is non-phenomenal. You can increase the volume, on your speakers, or you can reduce the volume on your speakers. You can increase the brightness on your screen, on your laptop, or you can decrease the brightness. Because both your speakers and the laptop are phenomenal. They're made out of various chips and various certain wiring and certain diodes that you can alter. You can increase your vision by putting a pair of glasses. You can increase your hearing by putting a hearing aid. But you cannot improve consciousness. You cannot increase the volume or drug consciousness or wake up consciousness. It's important to understand what we are talking about when we use the term consciousness or awareness. We're not talking about anything phenomenal. we're talking about the fact that I perceive there is a reality which perceives. And in this moment, this reality knows itself. I know I am, and I know I perceive. But it's important not to conflate this I, which knows that I am and I perceive, with the body or with the mind. The body is an instrument that allows consciousness to perceive via this instrument a certain sound, certain colors, certain shapes. But that does not limit consciousness. You cannot jump from the fact that via the body-mind, we perceive a certain limited objects and limited forms, to conclude that that which perceives is limited. You could be transmitting a signal to 10 million different receivers. And every receiver has a very small bandwidth. And they receive this bandwidth. You cannot conclude from the fact that the receiver is receiving a specific bandwidth that the transmitter is limited because the receiver is limited. As a metaphor. If you on a cloudy day, the sky is gray, and there is a small hole in the clouds, which reveals to you a small blue opening. You may conclude that the sky is a small opening in the clouds, because the mind is perceiving it this way. Or you may conclude that the sky is a small blue cloud. It's really important to understand what we are talking about when we are talking about awareness or consciousness. So in terms of your question, if I understood your question correctly, what happens to consciousness, awareness in anesthesia? The answer is nothing. You can only speak about what happens to the mind. You could say, well, there is no memory. It's like somebody erased memory, or because there is data that shows there were all sorts of activities happening around me. My ears were not plugged in. Nobody put plugs in my ears, and nobody, removed my brain. But I heard nothing, I saw nothing, I felt nothing. So that's my answer to your question, if I understood your question correctly.
Yes, I think you did. And thank you. Sorry, I'm a little congested still. But yeah, it was interesting for me as a body mind, because in some ways, sitting in the satsang and talking to people, and reading non-dual ideas, you get a certain understanding of them. But then going through an experience like that, it kind of makes you realize, maybe I didn't understand the things I was reading as well, because I think I really was unknowingly or or should know better, there was a definite equivalence I was making between the awareness, awareness and my mental activity, or awareness of
Yeah.
perception and awareness per se.
Awareness and
I think,
senses, awareness and
yeah,
mind.
right. And awareness and awareness of things. And I think it's sort of this experience that the body mind went through is sort of is opening more questions and more lines of inquiry for me.
Yes. In fact, like every day we go into deep sleep and we experience something similar to anesthesia in a way, that's very common,
Yeah.
Also, in terms of the mind is not ongoing. It's not ongoing. So you can look at the mind as a discontinuous instrument. It's sort of like the zeros and the ones, in the 0, 1, 0, 1. Between the 0 and the 1, there is a little gap, or like the inhalation and the exhalation. It's not continuous. The inhalation, then comes to an end. The inhalation takes a certain 3 seconds or 2-something seconds, comes to an end, and then there is a discontinuity. There is a moment of discontinuity, turning around, where the inhalation ends and now starts exhalation. The mind is like that. It's not like one continuous thought. The thought begins and ends, and before the second thought starts, there is a little gap which separates the first thought from the second thought. So in fact, the mind is not continuous. It seems to be continuous from the mind's perspective. I often use a metaphor of when you are watching a movie and you see a horse running. In the old days, they used to have the reels. I remember the reels of film. And the only reason why you see the horse running as a continuous experience is because of how fast the reel is spinning in front of the light source. But in fact, our visual eye of the human body is unable to discern. We cannot see those gaps. Well, if the film is spinning slowly enough, you will see the gaps. But talking usually when you go to the movies in the old days, you couldn't see the gap between every. This is how they did the subliminal advertising. They would introduce a picture of a Coke or and he gets thirsty. You want to buy a Coke at the movies. So the mind is discontinuous. That which gives the mind the impression of continuity is the spinning of the movement, the spinning as a metaphor. But in terms of our conversation, that which gives the mind the impression of continuity is consciousness, because consciousness is not like a light switch where you turn it on and off. It's non-phenomenal. It's nominal. It's the reality of being, the reality of being. But yes, we conflate consciousness with the body-mind, with sentience. We say, oh, the body is not conscious, or he lost consciousness. No, that's just a way of speaking, but it's not correct in the way we use the term consciousness. The body lost certain physical capacity, certain physiological capacity. There's been a change in the physiological functioning of the body-mind. But to conclude that there is something that has changed within consciousness is conflating mind with consciousness.
Yeah, I need to reflect more on it. And thank you, because our chat is helping me do that. I appreciate it, Magdi.
Okay, Richard.
Thank you.
Yes. Any questions? Hello, Mark. Did you unmute yourself? Yes. I'm not sure if I hear you. I'm not hearing you right now.
I did, and I'm looking for the raise hand
Oh, yes.
function, but
Okay.
I'm missing
Okay.
it. All right.
Yes. Hello.
Sorry about that. So in your meditation, which was wonderful, by the way, you spoke to intuition, and this is something that I've struggled with. I have a lot of thoughts and even hunches or gut feelings, but even those seem to typically be thoughts, and they're often inaccurate. I don't rely or trust them. I hear people talk about just knowing something, and they hold their intuition in high regard because it serves them. And I don't experience these, just moments of unprovoked knowing of something that just comes to me and turns out to be true or correct. Is intuition something that is to be developed or can be developed? Or am I just, missing it, noisy thoughts getting in the way? I don't know if that makes sense.
We all have access to reality because there is something rather than nothing. There is an experience, whatever that experience may be. It could be a hallucinogenic experience, who knows? It could be a dream experience right now, who knows? Irrespective of what the experience is, there is an experience, there is a reality that perceives this, whether this is dream experience or hallucinogenic experience, there is a reality. So we all know, we have this intuition because experientially, we are this reality. We are party to this reality. It is a common belief in our culture that the reality is that which is the world, the body. The reality is a physical reality. And we overlook that there is a reality which perceives the body, we perceive the sensation, we perceive the image of our body in the mirror, or we perceive memories. Somehow in our common culture, we overlook the reality which perceives. But once we start to contemplate that, wait a minute, I'm perceiving, I is this perceiving element, this perceiving aspect, the perceiving potential within this experience. I am the perceiving element. And that is absolutely real, because if you remove the perceiving element, what would a perception be without the reality of perception? There's a reality of perception. So that which we perceive can only be as real as the reality which perceives it, at best. So the reality that perceives is our reality. The reality of being, of consciousness. But when we are somehow overlooking consciousness, and we experience under the belief and feeling, under in ignorance. We experience that our reality is the body-mind. We still have an intuition. We still have an intuition about consciousness. In terms of your question, do we need to cultivate intuition? That sounds like would be like a really complicated thing to do. You know? We have to seek advice from the intuition cultivator experts, you know. So, there are so many who claim that they are the one. You know. I would say rather than having to cultivate intuition, explore the validity of your belief or of the belief that I am, that my reality is body-mind form, that my reality is the reality of the body named Mark, who exists in time and space. Explore that first. Could it be that your reality is not made out of sensations and thoughts and perception, that your reality is made out of consciousness? Explore that. And explore if you can find any evidence that this consciousness, which I am, is mortal or depends on the body mind, or arises out of the brain, or is limited in any way. You can explore that, which in so many ways explore all your beliefs, all the possible beliefs that support this notion that I consciousness resides in the brain, resides in the body, or is limited to the body-mind, or resides behind the eyes, or is located somewhere, that it has a beginning and an ending, so that you can drop the evidence if you don't find it to be valid. Because as long as you have not explored and come to your own clarity that this argument that I cherish, that supports the belief that I am a body, mind, I'm a limited consciousness. Until you have seen that evidence is not valid, you will continue to cherish that notion. So you don't need to cultivate any with such a thing as intuition, because consciousness is all-knowing. So it is the intuitive master. Okay, it is. It is the trump card when it comes to intuition. But what interferes with the all-knowing, the manifestation of this all-knowingness, is the belief that we know what consciousness is. It is a person, it is located here, blah, 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 blah. This is what I would recommend.
Thank you for that.
Because intuition doesn't arise from a person. It does not arise from the mind. It arises to the mind. There's a difference between intuition arising from the mind and intuition that arises to the mind. In ignorance, we believe that intuition arises from the mind. We imagine that there is an intuitive or a non-intuitive mind. But in fact, mind is a concept. There isn't such a thing, in fact, as a mind. But we use the term mind to make reference to thoughts, perceptions, sensations, as a general term. In a more specific, more narrow definition of the term mind, we use the term mind to refer to thoughts. But in a broader definition of the term mind, which is how I use the term mind is used to refer to thoughts, perceptions, sensations, memories. Now, believing that a mind can have an intuition is like believing that a perception can have an intuition. It is like believing that a thought can have an intuition. A thought does not have an intuition. A thought appears. It appears out of consciousness. It appears. A thought appears and disappears. The sensations too, perceptions. They appear, they're appearances. Intuition comes from beyond. It comes to the mind. I have an intuition. I perceive an intuition. I sense an intuition. You say, it arises to you. But it doesn't come from thoughts or from sensations or from beliefs or from effort. It comes from God. It comes from beyond. It comes from consciousness. And consciousness is your true nature, not some concept of consciousness or somebody behind the clouds or there. No. Consciousness is your reality. This moment, consciousness is. And every moment, you can check every moment. You can wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and check. You can say, is there consciousness in this moment? Is there awareness in this moment? Am I conscious? Is there consciousness? You will find the answer is always yes. But you have to explore that consciousness doesn't arise when the mind asks, is there consciousness? No. When the mind asks, is there consciousness? That thought is there consciousness? That thought that arose as a question. It didn't arise from the mind. It arose to the mind. It appeared in the mind. So from where? From consciousness. So it's consciousness itself, which is asking itself, am I conscious? And the answer is always yes. Because whenever there is the question, am I conscious? It is consciousness that's asking that question. Of course, I am conscious.
That's a lot to think about. I've taken some notes down that I need to.
Yes. Holger, thank you very much, Holger. Every time he puts the recording of the satsang on YouTube, you can watch it, or you can put your email in the chat. I send you the recording. But yes, I know it's so any understanding that you have about consciousness is the path towards consciousness. So the consciousness is paved, the road to consciousness is paved with understanding about consciousness.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to talk to you.
Nice talking to you.
Any questions? Hello, Lisa. I think you are muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Hi, Magdi. I really don't have a question, but I just wanted to tell you that your meditations have helped me so much in caregiving my mother who has Alzheimer's. Initially, I had a lot of resistance. My person had a lot of resistance to doing this, and I found it challenging. But everything has shifted. One of the meditation, I forget the name of it, but everything has changed since that. And it's just amazing that when I rest in being, I can meet her wherever she is. Whereas before, the body, my person, my body, mind, whatever, I don't like to use the word I out of place, but just for the conversation, wanted it to be different, trying to change it. And now she's in the last stage of Alzheimer's. So there's the behavior is very childlike. And I never knew that I could be this way. And it's just being myself, not trying to be anything else or being the way I thought I should be or whatever. The meditations really helped me just allow myself to be myself. And I don't have to think about what I'm doing. I don't have to think about what to say. It's just such grace. And I just wanted to thank you so much. I have questions, but I'll have to formulate them offline and bring them to you. But I just wanted to say how much I appreciate this. And it's just changed everything with me and my mom. And she cries a lot. But she just keeps saying, thank you, Lisa. Thank you. You're so kind to me. You're so kind to me. Nobody else is like you. And it's just beautiful. It's such grace. And I just want to thank you so much for that. That's all.
Yes. Thank you. My love to your mom. You know, we come from the source and we return to the source. We are children at heart. We are. And that's the lovely aspect. So lovely, childlike quality of our being, the innocence, the freshness, the purity, the not knowing, the spontaneity.
I just wanted to add something. I just recalled it was during the winter solstice. I think Holger actually sent an email out, or right after that, with the meditation that you did. I forget the name of it. And prior to getting it, I was really on the ledge with the whole situation. And in A Course in Miracles, which I use, I read that periodically, they say a miracle is a shift in perception, and it happens in a holy instant.
Holy instant, yes, yes.
Yes, that's what happened.
It's a
I mean,
term, holy instant. I like it.
A holy instant. I mean, it's just, it was unbelievable. I mean, because I at that point, before I heard it, I was just running and running. The mind was racing, and I can't take this, and blah, 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 blah. And that particular thing, I realized that I just needed to be still and come back. Just come back. And it's just amazing. I had to share that part too. Thank you.
Any questions? Well, very lovely to be with you all. Nathan, Holger, Lisa, hey Mark, Mo, hi Mo, Ron, hello Anata, nice to see you. Frank, Richard, hi Richard, Mark, hello Raoul, Holly, Anastasia, and my sweet Tara. Thank you all. I will leave shut off the recording. I'll leave the meeting on in case people want to chat.